The light of the afternoon sun created a warm glow. Everything, in this moment right now, is beautiful. A soft breeze moved everything around her, making the grass and trees sway. She sat staring at the overgrown field in front of her. Not a house in sight. "Good," she said. "That means I don't have to deal with anyone." She could feel the warmth of the sun, like a welcome hug. A light breeze moved her hair, just a little, which at first made her jump. She instantly realized it. She instantly realized she was okay, and let out a huge sigh. Everything's okay now. It's all over now. She reassured herself out loud. She crossed her arms into a sort of self-hug and squeezed lightly. She wasn't cold, but she had goosebumps anyway. The lasting effects of what just happened, still manipulating her senses. She could still smell it, taste it even. It was so strong. She had never seen so much blood. She shook her head, recalling every second of what she saw, questioning herself. Was it real? Is it really over? She asked herself out loud in a whisper. Did it really fucking happen? She knew she had to go to the station to make an official statement, but she also knew that no one was going to understand. No one is going to believe one damn thing. She wasn't being accused of anything. Officers witnessed the final acts of self-defense. But that wasn't it. That wasn't the part that she was worried about. What she was worried about was having to tell. Having to explain the entire evening. Having to explain her entire life. If I tell them everything, they're going to think I'm crazy, she said again, in a scrambled whisper. I guess I better practice saying I don't know a lot, she said. I guess I better become clueless real fast. She sat unmoving, but mentally contemplating her statement. I guess I better believe it too. For my own damn sake. For their sake. Finally, she stood up from the long grass, legs almost asleep, and wiped her hands off on her pants. Thankful for this moment of peace that's now over. Suck it up, Buttercup. It's time for show and tell. She turned around to walk to her car. Sitting in the interrogation room at the table, 2 chairs, one for me, one for the detective. Nothing on the walls, no windows. He asked me if I wanted coffee, but I couldn't really respond. Still emotionally raw from what just happened. "I'm just here to make my statement," I said. The detective shifted, relaxed, and took a sip of his cup. "Whenever you're ready, take your time," he said. I sat blankly staring, really just gaping at the floor. The events hitting replay in my mind without a break. When I finally felt brave enough, I made eye contact with the detective. Of course, I did nothing wrong. I did nothing but protect myself. Not just last night. I've been protecting myself. My secret. My family secret my entire life. But this guy, he doesn't even know that. All he needs to know is the answers to his questions. All he really needs to know is a confusing, basic explanation of the fucked upness he witnessed as I defended myself against what can really only loosely be referenced to as my family. I mean, it's not like there is or was one damn family thing about it. Sure, we were blood, but that was it. That was the extent of our connection. Well, that and the awful thing we all had in common. The thing I hated most about us. I hated it, but they loved it. They embraced it. The thing I could never escape was their salvation. It was disgusting. I hated the fact that I was a part of it in any way, and it made me hate myself. Not that I had any choice in it, I was born into it. "Miss," the detective looking me over, trying to see if I'm going to respond or snap out of my self-imposed waking coma. "Are you ready to begin? I do have a few specific questions and then you can go." From what I and everyone else witnessed, there wasn't much left to question. "From what I saw," the detective said, "you were cornered and had no choice but to defend yourself." "I know you were defending yourself." He paused, squinted, and leaned forward. "But you and I both know that there's a lot more to what's going on here." He had the cleanest sightline. Of the last moments before it all ended, he saw everything. He knew. I saw his face. The complete shock and disbelief of what he saw was apparent. I nodded, but I knew I couldn't really tell him. I couldn't tell him, but I guess it would be different if he guessed. But how the fuck could he guess this? Staring out of the window of the small diner, she watched the rain pour down as she mindlessly stuffed her face. Unable to remember the last time she ate a real meal. The diner was cozy and a nice distraction from reality. Evening set in as she decided to get it over with and head home. As she approached the house where it all happened, she noticed the detective sitting in his car. What the fuck does he want? She thought. As they both exited their vehicles, he nodded at her and approached. "Can I help you with something, detective?" she asked as he slowly started. "Look, you don't have to do anything really. I've got your statement. The paperwork is all neat and tidy. But the logical part of my brain, maybe just my curiosity, please humor me." She looked confused, but inside, she was begging he wouldn't ask. Not directly anyway. "Why don't we go inside, detective?" "You sure you want to go in there? It's quite grotesque." She shrugged and proceeded. They approached the porch and ducked under the crime scene tape. "We'll just go into the kitchen and chat. Tea?" The living room where it all happened was just out of sight. "No, I'm good." "Here's what I don't understand. What I saw is not anything I have ever come across or even heard of before. The things I saw coming at you, 5 or 6, I'm not even really sure. It was dark. In your survival, I cannot understand. The logistics just don't add up. Not without additional explanation. No one would believe it, and I'm not even here on behalf of the department. I'm here so I can sleep at night." She looked directly into his eyes, sipped her tea, and started. "There are monsters in this world, detective. Some fantasy, but some aren't. People are scared of the dark, of what's under their bed, behind the shower curtain, or maybe in the closet. But the real monsters walk amongst us. We interact with them every day. We open doors for them or vice versa as they pass for what society deems as normal. No one knowing what they did last night or maybe this morning. But quite frankly, detective, we are currently living in a world that, to keep your family safe, you should be well aware that monsters are amongst us. They smile and wave at you as they cut their lawns or help someone put groceries in their car. You see them at PTA meetings or church. You shake their hands, and some occasionally just keep to themselves. They have no age, they have no gender, they have no discernible, obvious personality traits. They have no race, no social class. Anyone, anywhere, anytime. They could be sitting right next to you in class, at work, or they could be sitting next to you right now. Sometimes, detective, it takes a monster to take a monster down. The detective slowly blinked his eyes as he was coming to. He hadn't realized he had passed out. The young woman he had been talking to was sitting across from him, watching him carefully. "How are you feeling?" she asked. He couldn't answer yet. Realized his hands were tied to the chair. "Don't worry. I'm not going to hurt you." She stood up and started to tell him Look at your arm, she pointed. He looked down and noticed a large bite mark. Not a human bite mark, but looked more like a large snake bite. It was hard to decipher, and he was still a bit foggy. So she started again. I know you want to know what happened here, and I want to tell you, or anybody really, but I can't. In order to be able to remain living and existing among everyone, and without them knowing what I and what we are now, I cannot say it out loud, and you won't be able to either. It's sort of like a spell, if that helps. She paused. I and you now will be the same way. Will appear human to everyone as long as you don't ever tell anyone or say it out loud. Because if you do, then everyone will see you as you are. The detective finally spoke. That still doesn't explain why I'm in this chair. I'm getting to that, she said. There is one catch, which until now I couldn't really enjoy. We, or our kind, only seen in our true form by others of our kind. It's a blessing and a curse because you can never hide from one another. They seek you out. They, except me it seems, can only thrive in a sort of pack. So once they find you, you're sort of connected forever until death, which sometimes seems like the only way. He watched her as she sat across from him again. Detective, the bite on your arm is from me. He panicked and started scrambling. Calm down. Not only is it pointless, I'm not going to hurt you, but I'm experienced in restraints. He stopped scrambling. He appeared to calm down, but his breathing remained the same. So she started again. Soon, you're going to feel a change come on. The venom is going to spreading as we speak. You'll know the exact moment that it's done its job. Because soon I will appear to you in my true form. Because you will be the same as I. You'll see in me what you saw that night because you will be the same. His eyes blurred, blinking. She was going in and out of focus. Until she wasn't anyone. Until she was gone and in her place, like she said, was a monster staring at him. That's when he screamed. He heard his scream, but it was something else, an unfamiliar sound. He had never heard it before, except for that night, and now it came from him. He walked up to the front door of the small but very well manicured home. Almost looked like it could be in a magazine. The home glowed with warmth, charming and inviting. He checked the address on the small slip of paper in his hand again and approached the door. He took in a nervous breath and rang the bell. Quickly, he ran his hand over his hair, just slightly, his shirt and his pants. He quickly gazed at what he was wearing, assessing, and then thought, it's too late now. And then he could hear someone approaching the door. Why am I here again? He thought to himself. Why did I answer a personal ad? Being a nearly 30-year-old man in a new city and a virgin, he was lonely. Really lonely. He moved 2 states away from friends and family, and he knew hardly anybody there except for a few coworkers. So on Sunday morning, browsing his computer, he found himself on a dating site. Made a quick profile, and there she was. A little bit older than him, but a beauty. She was a widow with no kids. He sent her a message, and he got one right back. After figuring out they lived in the same city just a few blocks apart, they decided to meet. They only chatted for a few days. So here I am, he thought, and then the door opened, and a breeze wafted past him as he witnessed the angel in the doorway. She was beautiful, very well put together. She was slightly reminiscent of a mother from, the 50s? He didn't care. He didn't care if she was wearing a paper bag. Her bright, glowing presence was intoxicating. For a moment, he was severely self-conscious and wondered if she might be disappointed. But her smile put him at ease, and she welcomed him in. He could smell a delicious meal that had been prepared, and he could see that the table was set for 2. She politely and briefly embraced him and told him dinner was nearly done. "Would you like a drink?" she asked, and guided him to his seat. Approached her well-stocked bar, occupying the corner of the dining room. Sure, yes, he said. "Any preference? Martini?" "Sure, yes, thank you," he said. As she prepared the drinks, he took in his surroundings, slightly intimidated. "Cheers," she said softly, handed him his glass and sat beside him. "I'm so glad you came for dinner," she said. He took a sip and nodded. "Me too," he said, a little more relaxed. Before he knew it, he finished his drink. Then another and another. And after a while, he had started to feel a bit woozy. The lady of the house approached the bar once more and paused and said, "Oh, I forgot my ice bucket is empty. Could you assist me and grab some more ice?" "Sure," he said. Being completely inebriated, he thought he could do this anyway. "Where do you keep your ice?" "Oh, in the basement, in a deep freezer right at the bottom of the stairs. Could you be dear and fill it for me?" He started down the stairs, which he immediately regretted. As the full weight of his foot was centered on the first step, he heard it snap. Not having been prepared at all, and feeling extremely intoxicated, he fell down the entire flight of stairs, landing on the cold cement floor, rolling right into the base of the freezer. It all happened so fast, he lay there trying to focus his eyes in the dimly lit basement. One bulb at the top of the stairs was all the light he could see. There she stood, at the top of the stairs, perfect, beautiful, but now blank-faced. Without making eye contact, she held up a small bell and said, "Dinner!" turned off the light, and shut the door. It was about 85 degrees. Sun was shining. Perfect breeze. Waves slowly crashing, setting the scene for a perfect day. Daisy and Jill were just hanging out at the beach as normal. Daisy says, maybe a 7? Jill chimes in, "Yeah, I could see that." "Oh, now there's a 10. Daisy says, "Yeah, that's a 10 for sure." The girls went on, pointing out and rating person after person. Beautiful day at the beach. Moderately full, but still very enjoyable. Sammy had been testing out a new piece of equipment. She ordered off a TV that supposedly allowed you to hear conversations a block away, when she stumbled into Daisy and Jill's conversation. She watched from afar as she could clearly hear them ranking those they were pointing out. Guy after guy, occasionally a girl. She didn't judge. I mean, hey, it's 2016. It's cool. She followed along until she noticed them noticing her. She pretended to be reading as she listened to them say, "Jill, you think?" And Jill says, "Oh yes, right there. A perfect 10. Definitely. Just look closely. I mean, maybe, but it's your opinion. Daisy, you know I always know how to pick them." Whatever. Want to make a bet? I guess. Like, what's the bet? I'll clean the whole house for a month, including your laundry. Fine. A month, you're on. Come on, Daisy. Let's invite her over. Sammy mentally scrambled as she looked up and locked eyes with the two girls who were motioning her over. Damn it, she thought. What do they want? Why do they want me to come over? Embarrassed and hesitant, she stood up and brushed off the sand, then proceeded to walk over to the girls who looked like hungry wolves. And the closer she got to them, the more she thought the look in their eyes went from hungry to deadly. Alarm bells went off as she reached them. "Hi," she said. "Can I help you?" "Come sit with us. We like making new friends," Jill said, with a creepy smile that never reached her eyes. Sammy sat. And then she said, "I'm actually getting ready to leave. My name is Sammy. I'm Jill, and this is Daisy." Daisy nods but says nothing, with the same creepy smile Jill had. "We've never seen you before," Sammy says. "I only come here once in a while when I have time to drive up." Daisy looks at Jill and says, "Oh, you're not from around here?" "No, about 45 minutes away, but my family and I used to come here when I was younger. Now I just come up once in a while when I have a break from work and school." "We're like 2 blocks from here," said Jill. "We're practically live here," she said as she creeped closer to Sammy. Daisy sat observing the two. Then Daisy said, "You come here all alone?" "Yeah, it's a nice drive." Jill and Daisy shoot each other a look. "Ow!" Sammy said. She felt a small pinch on her arm and noticed Daisy slipping a syringe back into the side pocket of her portable cooler. "What the fuck? Did you just shoot something into my arm?" Sammy noticed her arm getting really warm and her vision getting very fuzzy as she looks at both girls. "You're just gonna take a little nap now." At the mention of the word, Sammy's out. When she finally comes to, obviously, the sound of crashing waves, and feels something wrong, she opens her eyes to see it's not dark outside. Bound and gagged and dangling from the sandy area under the pier. As her vision focuses, she notices Daisy and Jill just looking at her. "Good, you're awake. We've been waiting for hours." Daisy looks at Jill. "Just get on with it, Jill. It's super late and I have to work tomorrow." Jill says, "I still think she's a 10. Who cares? We're never going to find out at this rate." Jill says, "Sammy." It is Sammy, right?" Sammy nods and tears stream down her face. "Sammy, Daisy and I have a bet here to see if you're a 10. But it's not what you're thinking. See, we rate random people on a scale from 1 to 10, and there's a reason. A game we sort of created. You see, we rate people based on how loud we think they'll scream. Now, why would they scream, you ask? Sammy's eyes darted, panicking between Daisy's and Jill's slightly bored expression, but still, both of them creepily smiling. Jill approaches Sammy, moves the gag, and Sammy doesn't scream, doesn't speak, only panicked breathing. Jill says, "No scream? Nothing?" Daisy says, "Come the fuck on, Jill." Jill says, "Hang on. Maybe this will inspire something." Jill picks up a small tool off the sandy ground that had been sitting by her feet. "See this? It's gonna hurt like a son of a bitch." And there it is.
You're mine now.
His breathing was rapid, as was his heartbeat. He stared at the door to his room at the center in the dark. Everything was quiet, but in his head, he was shouting.
"Don't close. Don't close, don't close, don't close."
His heart beat harder, his breathing out of control. Sweat trickled from his forehead. He turned to stare at the ceiling. Counting the tiny nubs on the popcorn ceiling, he needed a distraction. He heard the door budge just slightly, making a rustling noise against the carpet. He sat up and screamed.
"Don't close!"
Staring at the door that was now rocking back and forth, he prayed that the inanimate object would obey him, not do the opposite of what he was hoping.
"Don't you dare fucking close."
He was 8 when he realized he could make things move with his mind. He started with a pencil. Every kid's tried it, but for him, it actually worked. At home, he secretly practiced it for hours and hours. First, by rolling a pencil toward him and rolling it back. Then, more pencils. Then he learned he could command them to stand upright on their sharpened tips. Then he moved on to his toys. Then he moved on to other things in the house. It was only when his mother came home early from work one day that she discovered anything that was going on with her son. At first he was hesitant, but once he knew his mother was open to his talents, he showed her what he could do. Making a door open, closing a window, turning on the TV, and that was at 8. At 10, his talents had grown to the point of his mother thinking he needed a disguise for his talents. So she invested in magic books and tricks as sort of a cover, even getting him to do the entire magic top hat tricks for his friends and neighbors, put on little magic shows, which allowed him to practice his abilities in front of everyone. And if anyone questioned it, he could just say, it was magic. By 12, he had developed something he and his mother deemed telekinetic displacement. They don't even know if that was the right term, but they defined it, meaning he could just move not just objects. Now he could move energy and his thoughts. The thoughts of others. By 14, the mere suggestion by someone when he could hear, would then place that thought into an energy into his head, and then into motion. They discovered this one day when his mother suggested out loud that they go shopping. Immediately, her purse and keys were at the front door. They both felt an invisible force pulling them out of the house to the car that started itself. This development led to a disastrous trip to the store, as every person they passed by talked about their day, things they wanted to happen, good and bad. Items flew off the shelves. No one knew it was him, of course, but they left, agreeing that when in public, he would now have to wear headphones or earphones and listen to music that only had no lyrics to them. By 16, his talents had grown out of his control, and he had begun to fear talking or even hearing someone else talk. By 18, he and his mother agreed they needed help and had contacted professors at the Psychic Research Center. This is when everything went from bad to worse. Getting them to understand the severity of his powers was daunting and became dangerous quickly. Once they finally understood, they came up with a plan. If he could somehow channel his thoughts while they monitored his brainwave activity, maybe they could harness it and store it in spouts, leaving him small windows of time to live a somewhat peaceful and normal life. At first it worked. He had the most relaxing 30 minutes he could even remember in more than a decade. After that he fell asleep, finally feeling safe and relaxed enough. Now asleep, however, he had no conscious control over his thought process, and now his dreams turned into nightmares, which turned into monsters that came to life at the center, taking his life and everyone else's life into the nightmare together. Everyone at the center was gone, and he sat there in the dark, reliving everything he saw as he walked from room to room in the center, seeing the chaos and wreckage from his own mind.
Don't close. Don't close, don't close, don't close!
Evelyn always came to work at 7:50 a.m. at Super Safe Grocery Store every day, 8 to 4:30, Monday through Friday, as a cashier for 25 years now. Donald, her manager, started working there at the same time as she did, right after high school. And although his manager's schedule varied from Evelyn's, he was always kept up to date on her from other managers, especially his assistant manager, Rob. Not because she acted weird or did anything out of the norm. Quite the opposite. Always the same. Exactly the same. Never late. Never sick. Same lunch. Same hair. In fact, she had slowly morphed into gray hair and glasses. Slightly frumpier clothes maybe, but that's about it. Evelyn never got upset either. Not even at angry customers. Even one particularly angry customer, who was up in her face, screaming at her as small speckles of spit landed on her lenses. She just blinked slowly as he screamed on, let them say whatever, and finished their transaction. Then said like she always did, "Thank you for shopping at Super Slave. Please come again and have a nice day." And proceeded on to the next customer, just the same way she did every day for 25 years. One day, though, Rob, the assistant manager, noted something as she returned from break and asked Donald about it later.
Good afternoon, shoppers. Our special today is Salisbury steak, $3.99 a pound, and you get a free pound of cheese.
"Dude, guess what I saw today?" "What?" Donald said, exhausted from his overscheduled job and life. "Evelyn was coming back from break, and I saw her put a tiny little, I think it was an address book, into her smock. You ever seen that before?" "No," said Donald, still not interested. "I'll give you $50 if you can find out what's in it." Donald looks at his assistant manager and rolls his eyes. 100. "How would we ever even get our hands on it, Rob?" They both stared out the manager's office, one-way mirror, contemplating. "Tell her we're doing random routine sweeps of everyone's personal items, like from theft and stuff." "Think that'll work?" "Yeah, we'll just make everyone hand in their smocks."
Timothy Duncan, please come to the front of the store. Your mommy is waiting impatiently for you.
"Okay." "But the lack of exciting shit in that tiny book is going to be an expensive wager." "Whatever, man. Just get your hands on it. You know there has to be something freaky going on somewhere with that chick." "Okay. You know what's really freaky, though? The fact that you do little to no work in front of your boss with fear of getting fired." "Ha. Okay, yes, sir." He saluted him and walked off, and the end of the day came, and Evelyn, as she was clocking out, Donald approached her. "Hey, Evelyn, can you do me a favor and hand over your smock?" Okay. Did I do something wrong, sir?" No. And please, don't call me sir. We're the same age, Evelyn." "Sorry, sir. Donald." "Okay. Corporate is requiring us to do a random search of smocks anti-theft routine. So besides your cell phone, wallet, and keys, we need to just search it, and it'll be here for you in the morning." Okay, Daniel. See you tomorrow." "See you. Have a good night." Donald takes the smock into his office, and without the door closing, his assistant manager, Rob, was right there.
Clean up on aisle 4.
"I just saw Evelyn leaving. Did you get it?" Donald holds out his hand. "That'll be $100. "Damn!" Slaps the bill into his hand. "Ha ha, don't mess with the master." "Did you look at it yet?" "No. But if we find anything, and I mean anything remotely interesting, I'll give you your $100 back." "Oh, you're on. Now open the damn thing." Donald takes the smock, digs into the front pocket. Crisp, clean smock has nothing in the pocket except for the tiny book. No pen, no random papers, no wrappers. Most people's smocks resemble the bottom of someone's purse. Finally grasping the small little notebook in his hand, he opens it and stares at it for a second, confused. What is it? I'm not sure. It doesn't make sense. Any guesses? Inside the little book were check marks, sort of like when someone's keeping track of a score or something without numbers, like 4 scratches and then the 5th one going through it diagonally. I count 137. You? Same, but look through the rest. Maybe there's something else. Donald shook it to see if anything came out. Nothing. Then he shuffled through it and then fanned it. Wait! What? I saw something. Go back. About 2/3 of the way through the book, there was something written backwards. MOC.Z. Dude, it's backwards. It says SSKILLZ.com. Type it in, man. It's just a screen. Now it says we have to download Tor. What the fuck, man? That's deep web shit. Fuck it. Download it. They waited. Download it. Type in the page name again. And all it says is, password, please. They both sat there for a while guessing various passwords, and after an hour, Rob left for the day, and Donald went back to work, deciding they'd brainstorm on it later, but Donald had stuff to do, and Rob was now free for the night. So he went home to go through his nightly routine, and Donald went about his work duties to wrap up his evening. With an hour left to close, Donald went back into his office, reopened the browser, typed it in, and entered one last idea. He typed in the number 137. Bam. Access granted. Before he even read anything, he saw page after page after page of, he didn't even read it yet, he just texted Rob to come up there and they could look through it together. But he couldn't wait for Rob. There he saw what appeared to be Evelyn's secret blog. 137 pages. 137 blogs. And each blog was a descriptive story of how she managed to kill 137 people for the last 25 years, and no one ever knew. How she found out who they were, and went on to explain where they lived, what they did, even why she killed them, and how she killed them. It seemed to be that each person had been a customer at Super Save, but either verbally abused her or one of their family members at the store. It seemed that the first few were very bad people. But after the first few, there really wasn't a solid justification to the madness. Any minor interaction that she didn't approve of or like, well, that made them become a blog post. The first victim was a pedophile on parole and had been eyeballing children in the store when Evelyn asked him what he was staring at, and he got angry with her. Very angry. Screaming and cursing and threatening her. She got his name from his check and his address. You gotta remember, this is 25 years ago. She found out where he lived and followed him. Then one day, when he was out, she went inside, went in the closet and waited for him. She waited hours as he got home, made his dinner, watched TV, showered, and finally went to sleep. She crept up to his bedside, raised the knife she took from his own kitchen, and slit his throat, watched him bleed out until she was sure he was gone. And then she let herself out. Donald kept scrolling through page after page, skimming, blog after blog, shocked. That's when he heard Rob enter and asked, "What is it, man?" "Sit. Raid. Oh, the hair. Donald slaps the same $100 bill back in Rob's hands and exits to make his last announcement for the day.
Good evening, shoppers. Our store will be closing in 15 minutes.
Tom waits outside nervously for Scott to answer the door. And after a few minutes, Scott opens the door and says, "Hey man, come on in." They do a quick man handshake as Tom enters, quickly eliminating Tom's fears about accepting Scott's invitation to hang out. They hadn't seen each other since their falling out about 6 months ago, and honestly didn't think they'd ever speak again. Best friends since 10. They grew up and started their own company together and had done quite well for themselves. Originally a small advertising firm, had branched into a few small investments and a program supporting entrepreneurs and their inventions, providing them with a legal team, patenting, marketing, and manufacturing. They made no business moves without the other. There was one invention in particular, though, that Tom made a solo decision on while Scott was on vacation in Fiji and was unreachable. Tom figured it was a decision Scott would make and agreed it needed to be a yes. Life was great. But things went bad quickly when the solo decision made by Tom was a stolen idea patented by someone else who then sued them and won. The news came mid-production and mid-ad campaign. Usually product sales covered the manufacturing and marketing costs, but this lawsuit devastated their company, facing them to liquidate and close their doors. Scott held Tom 100% responsible, and it wasn't until about 2 weeks ago that Tom even heard from Scott. "It's good to see you, man," Scott says. "Same," says Tom. "Was surprised to hear from you, but glad." "Well, listen, I've got a pizza in the oven. Have a seat on the couch and the remote's on the table." Scott walks into his kitchen. "You want a beer?" "Sure," says Tom, scrolling through the guide on the TV, noticing the channel Scott was watching when he got there. Serial killers. He has a definite preference. Then he looks at the DVR, sees a show after show depicting perfect murders, serial killers, etc. Scott hands him a beer, sits next to Tom. "Thanks, man. Welcome. Hey, you really like this murder stuff, eh?" "Yeah, I mean, I guess I really got into it after I stumbled onto it one night. I mean, at first, when I moved into this small apartment, I couldn't sleep. So I watched a lot of late-night TV. Yeah? Yeah. So I'm flipping through channels, and I stumble onto this story about murder by poison." "Yikes," says Tom, but listens intently as Scott goes on. "So this guy concocts a poison cocktail that's tasteless, so his victims have no idea they're ingesting it. Plus, the poison dissipates in the victim's system, leaving no trace." Tom says, What the fuck? But how? Why?" Scott waits a minute, takes a swig of his beer, and says, "I guess he started out of curiosity but kept going because he got a sick high from it." Tom and Scott both take a swig of his beer. And Tom looks at Scott and says, "Holy shit, that's crazy. It seems like they would taste the poison, don't you think?" Scott takes another swig of his beer, looks Tom dead in the eye, and says, I don't know. You tell me." "Can you taste it?" The inventor of this game is a friggin' genius. Or madman, I can't decide. And I'll tell you why. My kids. My kids are so into this game that they've nearly hurt themselves. And yesterday, Bobby almost walked into oncoming traffic, and Maisie was on the roof. They're obsessed with it, playing it day and night, asking to go here or there to catch some Pokemon, and I can't let them go alone. Not only are they not old enough to aimlessly wander around looking for Pokemon, no. Even if they were old enough, I'd still need to be right there with them to make sure that they didn't hurt themselves. And since I have to be with them the entire time that they're playing, I can't get anything done. It's gotten to the point that they've woken us up in the middle of the night begging us to take them to catch Pokemon, which caused my husband to snap. "I've got to get up in 3 hours and you're in here acting insane," he shouted. "You're being completely inconsiderate of the fact that I have to go to work. Work that pays for, by the way, the phones that let you play that damn Pokemon game." The children blankly stared at their father as if he had said nothing, blinked once and repeated what they said, as if nothing had happened. Their father then snatched the phones out of their hands and said, "There! Try to play without these." Again, they blankly stared at their father, blinked once, and in unison, as if on cue, they opened their mouths as wide as they could. So wide, it was unnatural, and screamed. It was louder than any scream I have ever heard, and longer too. They just stood there, without taking a breath, screaming. As the scream went on, it started to sound more like a high-pitched frequency. It didn't even sound like it was coming from them, but it was. Ear-piercing. We covered our heads with pillows. The scream was so loud it was immobilizing. Praying that it would end soon, it suddenly dissipated. But it wasn't gone, just displaced. It sounded like it was coming from outside our open window. When we removed the pillows from our heads to look at our children, only to realize they were no longer standing in front of us, making this sound, but now rather on the front lawn. But what was even more frightening than this oddity was the fact that now they stood on our front lawn, omitting this scream, if you would call it that. We watched as countless children and adults, with their mouths hung wide open, omitting the same sound, approached our children, slowly and methodically. We watched from our second-story window this, and then again as if on cue. They all simultaneously turned and stared right up at us. "Honey," I whispered, tugging on his shirt sleeve. "I think I just peed a little." He waited, and then responded, "Me too." In any other situation, that comment would have been funny, but this was far from hilarious. Without saying a word, my husband tossed their phones down to them from our window. Bobby and Maisie unflinchingly caught them, robotic-like, but stood there frozen momentarily. At that moment, every single person that had aimlessly wandered to our lawn blinked, and then, as if they were suddenly awake, began to return from where they came from. We watched for a few minutes as they all slowly disappeared into the night, and then, as if nothing super crazy had just happened, the children again asked us to take them to look for Pokemon. We both looked at them, confused, then turned to look at each other. "I'll take them," I said. "You go to bed." "No," he said. "No, we'll both go." Sheila and Guy had admittedly become addicted to Pokemon Go. So much so that Sheila used all her sick days calling in so she could dedicate all of her time to the game. Guy wasn't as bad, but he was on day 4 of the same underwear. While they were out one night, they ran into a group of friends doing the same. It was Guy's friend pointed out that Sheila had wandered off behind Guy about 20 feet and was leaning down and trying to scoop up air, turning and scooping. The oddest part was that her eyes were closed. Guy and his friends exchange a look and he walks up to her and says, honey, what are you doing? She stops, stands up straight, eyes closed, mumbling to herself. Hey, you need your phone back, honey? She stops mumbling and noticingly pees all over herself. Are you okay? What's going on? Guy's friend says, dude, how long have you guys been out here? Guy looks at her, looks at his friend, and says a while. So his friend says, maybe you should take her home, man. She doesn't look right. While sitting on the couch with her eyes still closed, Sheila suddenly starts talking, but sounds like she's narrating the scene in their living room. Sheila speaks and says, he looked at her with deep intensity. Guy raises his eyebrows confused and says, Sheila? She ignores him but goes on to say, she knew exactly what he wanted to say. Guy pauses and looks at her and says, Sheila, why are you narrating everything we do? Sheila again ignores him and goes on to say, Sheila struggled to answer Guy's question. So Guy says, oh my God, snap out of it. Sheila again ignores him and says, Sheila felt like she was losing it. She continued to narrate and freak Guy out at the same time. He tried to ignore her and just said, Sheila, get it together. She stops narrating, opens her eyes, blinks, and looks at him and says, I'm sorry. She turns to Guy. What did you say? What the hell is the matter with you? And she closes her eyes and starts rocking back and forth, silently mumbling to herself again. He looks at her with horror, but tries to play it off by saying, What are you saying? She stops rocking, then just lays down on the couch immediately and falls asleep. He stares at her a minute and then says, okay. Confused, he slowly walks into the kitchen and makes some ramen and chicken fingers. It wasn't a gourmet meal by far, but hey, it was their first apartment and they were still adjusting to the whole grown-up thing, which included grocery shopping. While he watched his food heat up, he got a text from his friend asking about Sheila and asking if they were going to come back out and Pokemon hunt. He said, no way, man. Went back to watching his food heat up. He grabs his food, grabs a Coke. Plate in hand, turns to go to the table when he stops and almost runs right into his girlfriend who was standing in the middle of the kitchen. Her eyes were closed. She just stood there. So he breaks the silence by saying, hey honey, you scared me. You feeling any better? Just then she started silently mumbling to herself again. So he sets his Coke and plate on the counter, slowly leans in to try to figure out what she's saying to herself. Hey honey, I can't understand you. What are you saying? She continues to mumble to herself, but he still can't understand what she's saying. Fear and impatience takes over and he says, just tell me what you're saying. Suddenly Sheila, eyes still closed, increases the volume from silent to soft whisper so he can at least make out what she's saying to herself. Over and over and over again, she's repeating the phrase, gotta catch 'em all, gotta catch 'em all, gotta catch 'em all, gotta catch 'em all, gotta catch 'em all. This used to be what some would call a great big small town. Everyone knew everyone and knew everything about them. That can be good and bad. Meaning, if someone were in trouble or in need, everyone came together and chipped in. But if someone had a secret they wanted to keep, good luck. This town had traditions. Generations of families resided here. We had festivals for just about everything you can imagine. Think Corn Queen, things like that. We even had a goofy sheriff that, as the older folks would say, liked to keep the riffraff out. Didn't do much good when it all went down. In fact, it might have assisted in the rapid descent of the town. People refusing to believe that their family members were gone and had been replaced by rabid, hungry monsters and kept them close at home. Mistake number 1. Mistake number 2. Being such a tight-knit community, this town made it its mission to keep others out, which is exactly what they did when the CDC showed up. Not that they could have done anything to help at that point. Once the sheriff realized he needed help, he enlisted the assistance of any and all locals that had any kind of military or police training. I did 3 tours of Iraq and had been home for 3 glorious months before shit hit the fan. So now, I keep pace with my imaginary drill team as I march on this desolate wasteland I once called home. My team wasn't imaginary at one time. Picked off one by one, I was all that was left. Their ghostly presence in my mind leaves me with a sense of humanity. As I ponder the word and break it down, I realize how strong a hold it has on my current mental state. Humanity. Humane. Human. Things that slowly slip away from me. Each passing minute of every hour of every day. What I wouldn't give to hear someone's voice. A baby cry. A dog bark. The only sounds I ever hear besides myself are the noises those things make when I accidentally discover them, or, God forbid, when they catch my scent, or I trip over something unseen. The only reason I'm even walking down this road right now, middle of nowhere in broad daylight, without shelter, is because I picked up a signal from the local news station live feed. Odd as it is, the world ends, and we still have internet. Go figure. I saw something in the feed and I had to start walking to it. I had to. It looked like 2 or 3 people, I don't know if it's some sort of glitch or mistake. Maybe it's an old recording. Maybe I'm just so damn hopeful that I won't be able to go on unless I check it out. I have nothing left to lose. And if I'm not at least going to try to find other people, life, well, I might as well lie down and ring the dinner bell. Speaking of dinner, I'm fucking starving. My mind was having a hard time concentrating on the task getting to the station, which started to be comforting as it served as an excellent distraction from the realities of life, but was slightly confusing, and getting dizzy makes it hard to carry on. One of the only bonuses about being the only person around so far is not having to share the food I do find. Thinking ahead, about 6 months ago, I started a garden on a rooftop of a grocery store in town. But I don't want any of the food to rot before I get a chance to eat it. I need to find a way to get a freezer started. On that thought, I finally arrive at the station, and it looks just as you would expect it to look in an apocalypse. Abandoned. Broken glass everywhere, chairs and garbage cans tipped over and tossed around, no signs of life anywhere. I proceed inside anyway, carefully, stupidly, and I go.
Bridget mindlessly but quickly cleaned her coffee cup. They have been through this long enough not to separate for very long, not ever. It became hell on earth, and she was stuck at work with her goddamn boss and a coworker, and now sharing her shit time with them. I believe being stuck at work for an eternity is pure nightmare fuel for most of the populace. Double that with the fact that she was also trapped there with her boss, seeing and living with her doofy ass boss every damn day. The most ridiculous part was Hal, her boss, was still trying to act as such and had received several injuries at this point as a result. Still hasn't learned. Denise shared in Bridget's misery with the double nightmare, but added by the fact that Bridget had always treated her like a homeless slave. Denise had an ongoing inside joke with herself that if she got desperate enough, she could just kill them and eat them. But Hal was probably high in cholesterol, and she imagined even if a wild animal tried to eat Bridget, they'd either end up with a disease or die from all the toxic shit she wears on her body, face, hair, etc. It wasn't all bad. Being in a large office building for the local news where other companies held training seminars frequently and endless meetings, they got enormous shipments of food about 4 times a year. You know, coffee, crackers, peanut butter, staples. And right before it all went down, they had just gotten a fresh shipment. They knew what they had could last them a few years. Just the 3 of them, hell. It could last if they even found a few more people. Which would be great. Which is why they sent out a message to anyone that might be able to see it. They were in a safe building, high off the ground, seemingly untouched by all of the chaos that went on down below. The only saving grace of it all, and the only reason Hal hasn't been thrown from a window as of yet, is because on Apocalypse Day, as they referred to it, he had made Bridget and Denise come in early that day and stay really late. Working on a project, they had been oblivious to the happenings of the world, and they were in a news building. Hal wanted them to focus, so much so that he had made them tell everyone that they were not to be disturbed for the entirety of their project wrap-up.
Since he had made them turn off and turn over their phones, they had no idea, no warning of what was going on. It saved their lives for sure, but it also cost them their last moments with their family and friends. Hal was messing with a mixed bag of crap, and he continued to deal it out to the ladies. The ladies who were sporadically contemplating his murder, and then being grateful for his asshattery of trapping him there. Bridget rinsed her cup, sat it in the strainer, and heard a knock and then a bang. Panicking, she ran back to the others and whispered, "Did you hear that? Have you guys checked the building cameras at all?" Panning through all the cameras, they could see a man in camouflage, sort of just standing in the hall. So at first, they couldn't tell he wasn't one of those things. "How did he get in?" said Bridget. Denise followed with, "I don't know. Maybe one of the windows or doors had just become weak over the year." Hal chimes in, "Just be quiet. Let's see what it's doing or where it's going. Let's see if it's alone." Bridget, "Wow, duh, Hal. What else were we going to do? And for God's sake, move over." Hal had always been quite handsy in their time together before the bad things came. And although he has pretty much been better since then, she still could not give him any indication of liking him in any way whatsoever. Resentment doesn't go away even in an apocalypse. You guys, it's not one of those things. It's a military dude or something. Bridget says, "What? Oh my God, thank God. He's here to save us." Denise says, "Calm down. He could be here to rummage through the place and take what he can find. Remember the others?" Bridget says, "I guess you're right." "Wait," Denise says, "he's looking right at the camera. He's signaling to see if anyone can see him. And he put his gun down." Bridget cheers, "He's normal! Let's bring him in." Denise says, "Oh my God, you're an idiot. Anyone can pretend, dummy. Like, I don't pretend I want to punch you." Bridget rolls her eyes and says, "I'm letting him in." She then walks to the end of the large room they have been living in for the past 14 months. There, at the exit, is a door within another door, and each has several locks and chairs and filing cabinets closing them off. Just moving them takes a while, and it takes skill as to not make too much noise to alert anything they don't want to be alerted. After about 10 minutes of undoing their barricade that they created, they were in the hallway, exposed. Bridget's heart was pounding into her throat. She hadn't seen another person besides the other two in a long time, and the sight of this man with so many different kinds of good, she couldn't help but run to him and hug him, catching them both off guard. And after she realizes she has just attacked a complete stranger with a hug, she releases her grip and backs off slowly and looks at him. He looks to be near her age, but it's honestly hard to tell. He just stares at her for a moment and then says, "Hi there," with a chuckle. He then extends his hand and introduces himself. "My name is Zylan, and I am so very happy to meet you." Hal and Denise stare in shock at another human for a few minutes before shaking his hand. Bridget was still shocked at her own actions. After finally getting over her overly friendly greeting, she shakes his hand and then they bring him into their self-made prison of safety. Unsure of what comes next, but for now, a fresh face and a different perspective will be a welcome intrusion for all of them. For now, they will all four breathe easier for the night. They will all feel a little bit better about what's to come. And they will all be just a little bit more hopeful about the future and life as they know it. Knife in hand, a long blade with the steel slightly curved at the end, forming a partial curlicue. He stood there in plain sight in her driveway, staring up at her second-story window, repeatedly slamming the blade into the side of her car as he stared at her. Lights on, blinds and window open. She was staring right back at him. She was done hiding and done being scared by this bastard. She knew who it was, even if he was wearing a ski mask. It was undeniable. She had already dialed the police, and they were on their way. But due to the history with this doucher, she felt secure in knowing he would just get another slap on the wrist. Another chance to come after her. Another series of moving and changing her number and hiding. It was enough. Not this time. This ends tonight. This fucker is going to jail for my murder, or he is going away in a bag. Everyone has a tipping point, and this was hers. "What are you waiting for, asshole?" She yelled down to him through her open window. She had set it up so he had an open invitation to end it all or be ended himself. By the way he was hesitating, she could tell he knew what she was thinking. 3 years. 3 years of this fucker tormenting her. Her fear had turned to frustration, then anger, and now pure hate. Once a work acquaintance with whom she had one conversation with. After which, she started receiving secret admirer notes. At first, in all honesty, were kind of sweet, and nice to think someone thought so kindly of her. That did not last long. one note, once in a while, turned into daily notes on her desk at work. Then her car. Then her house. And the notes had went from sweet and endearing to extremely sexual and violent. The police could do nothing as of yet. So she decided to move. Which didn't help and even escalated the situation by now receiving the notes inside of her house after several break-ins. No evidence. No one to catch. She moved. Again. And again. After the fourth move, the police finally got a lead and discovered who the person was. He was arrested at work. However, due to sloppy investigations, leading to a lack of evidence and a great lawyer, he got out and resumed his activities in pursuit of her. This made things worse than she could imagine. Non-stop calls, pounding on the door at random intervals during the night, break-ins. She wasn't sleeping or eating. She started to stay at friends' places, per police suggestion, and an installation of a camera at her place to try and get a clear shot of him and his actions. He was too smart for that. She wasn't safe at friends' places either, which led them to ask her to leave for their own safety. This all took place over the span of a year. Finally, at the suggestion of her mother, she decided to quit her job and move back to Indiana with her mother, where she grew up. Try and get her mind and life back together in the safety and shelter of home. Her old room was a welcome sight. She had moved to New Mexico after completing her master's and had to take the only real job offer she had gotten. She made the difficult decision and left everything and everyone she knew to start her grown-up life. She thought to herself, now I am right back where I started. Sort of. The move wasn't all in vain. She had gained some great experience in her 7 years away, but after everything that went down, her mother started spreading the word that her daughter was looking for work and came back to a better job offer than she had left for. Everything was working out, she thought. Stalker Douche had made the mistake of parking his car in the wrong spot upon his last adventure in pursuit of her, which led to a search of his car, where they found rope, duct tape, shovel, garbage bags, and other things I really didn't want to know about. That's how the police worded it. So he finally got some time for that. 1 year. And it took him an entire year of tracking her down, sending letters to all of her old addresses. Who gives a stalker the right to send mail in jail, by the way? Which then got forwarded. It was her mother who accidentally tipped him off. Upon checking the mail, she saw his lovely correspondence and sealed it up and wrote "Return to sender" on it. For some reason, he could tell what town it had been forwarded to and returned from. The additional bummer to that was now she had one less piece of evidence. She knew he was coming for her. She spent months, weeks, days, minutes waiting for him. Waiting for this shit to end. She was never a violent person. But when someone constantly intrudes on your life, it can change you. Add in the protective feeling she had for her mother, and she knew it had to be her to end it all. Funny thing about all this, if someone wants to get to you, they will. They can pay other people to drive by your house, check on you, spy on you at work, the grocery store, the gym, you name it. People seem to be money whores. However, thankfully there was one person who wasn't afraid of him and told him to fuck off when he approached her to ask for information on me, or to find out what she could about me. I grew up here. I made the mistake of not knowing that part and had asked one of my oldest friends. She immediately snapped a picture of him and called the police. The phone was still dialing when she felt a sharp pain across her head. Stalker douche had punched her in the side of the head and took off. The police came, took a statement, saw the pic, got up to speed, and were on track to catch this wacko at first opportunity. It felt so great that so many had her back when before she moved home, and this all went down, she felt so alone. It didn't matter. She had been tormented for too long. Not sleeping or eating right for 3 years can really mess with your mind. Or get it right. She hadn't decided that part yet. Snap back to him still just fucking standing there in her driveway, not moving. As if he had waited for this moment for so long, he didn't even know what to do. She shrugged her shoulders and nodded repeatedly, nope. Then started yelling, nope! Down to the cycle, slamming at the car. Nope! I'm not going to do this for one more goddamn day afraid of you. Let you chase me or having you follow me. Just no. Beside herself, with rage, or just a pure psychotic break, she lifted her leg to climb out of her window. Stalker douche froze, as if he couldn't believe his prize was going to come right to him. She was now standing on the roof of her garage, ready to climb down. He took a step forward, and she could hear him breathing from 50 feet away, as if his excitement was building. He took a few more steps. He was enormous, which meant even a few steps took him immensely closer to her. With the distance closing, she started to climb down the trellis. He stopped walking and then started jogging in place, like a boxer before a fight. 20 feet from each other. She hopped down onto the pavement of the driveway. He froze and poised his arms out to his sides like he was going to tackle her. She crouched, ready to pounce. Just then, bright lights blinded them both, and a loud bang, more like a boom, deafened her momentarily. She covered her head in pure reflex, and when she looked up, he was down in the driveway, unmoving. And there stood her mother, with a smoking shotgun. She looked at her mother with shock and relief, accompanied with gratitude. They hugged and waited for the police that they could hear in the distance. It was finally over. When I was in elementary school, I was terrified of our lunch lady. She had been the lunch lady for as long as anybody could remember, and I wasn't the only one who was scared of her. It was like this vibe. The entire school, including the other staff and teachers, they were all scared of her too. Although no one knew why it was there. This looming fear. The fear was so real. It felt like it had its own heartbeat. A collective pulse, soft and deep. And it came in the knowing she was there. The staff at our school rarely entered the cafeteria, always carefully avoiding it and her. I knew it the first time I felt it. The sheer utter fear that ran all over me. It came from just being near her. I was 7, in line to get hot lunch, as we called it. A rare treat for our household, as it was always cheaper to pack a lunch and take it to school. In line, I grab a tray and place it on the cold metal counter that you are to receive your food on. Excited, I slide my tray down, selecting the different choices from the other lunchroom staff. Potatoes from one, Jell-O from another. Then came her. She was in charge of dispersing the Salisbury steak and gravy. As I approached her, she made eye contact with me, and her eyes grew wide as she spoke to me in an uber creepy old lady voice. I don't remember you. You must be new. She said this, lipstick smeared all around her mouth. Combining with the other horrible makeup choices she made, I just stared at her. It was all I could do. She slapped the meat and gravy onto my tray and then said, "I'll be looking for you." And as she spoke, the drool that had been collecting at the corners of her mouth had started to slowly drip down the sides of her mouth to her chin. Like an animal waiting for its approaching meal, she was salivating. Frozen with fear, my first impulse was to drop my tray and run all the way home. Bursting through the front door in tears, I explained that the lunch lady was a monster and that I was never going back to school. Ever. My mother called the school and was informed of the fear-inducing lunch lady. But my mother assured me that the lunch lady was indeed not a monster, and I returned to school. I never ate hot lunch again. And I wasn't the only one. As time went on, the number of children actually eating hot lunch had reduced so much that the school had to let the other 2 lunch lady helpers go, leaving only one, decreasing the number of students willing to even purchase hot lunch at 0. It was shortly after that that the police paid a visit to our school and took the lunch lady away. All of the children gathered at the windows, just silently watching as they took her away. A collective sigh washed over the school. She was gone. It wasn't until I was a little older that I found out why. Being the senior staff member of the lunch program also meant she was in charge of the budget. That part is important. as it forced her to make arrangements for the most expensive part of the lunch program, the meat. She did the math, and if she could find a way to get meat dirt cheap, she would reduce the costs, stay under budget, and probably receive a raise as a result. So she got creative for her meat supply. It seemed our district had an unusually high number of teachers retiring that year, and since they wouldn't have a daily routine where they would be missed, well, you do the math. But that meat could only last so long. Eventually, she had to branch out. The worst part of putting this all together in my head was, I remember when I was younger, some teachers that I thought had transferred, or friends I thought had moved away, had actually turned out to be missing. The thought of where they might have ended up made me cry, then vomit. But honestly, I guess I can't be too sad. After all, they'll always be a part of me.
Well, well, well. You there. Yes, you. Is there someone else I should be addressing? No? Well then. Now that we've established that, I have a question for you. Are you afraid? No? Well, you should be. Was that a shadow or just your imagination? Maybe you should go and check. No, go on. I'll be waiting right here. Matter of fact, I'm always right here, waiting for that one tiny little mistake that will bring you straight to me. No, you don't have to come willingly, in fact. I prefer a screaming, squirming, terrified being before me. Who am I? Well, silly, that's easy. I am something you've always known. Something you've always feared, lurking in the darkness. In the places in your mind where you dare not go. Yes, you know me very well, for I am your worst nightmare. Do you want to play a game with me? Do you want to know a secret? Want to take a peek behind the curtain? Go ahead. I'm not going to stop you. Just play along with me. You'll find what it is you seek. I've got something brewing up my sleeve in my mind. It's definitely magic, or of the magical nature, really. Slowing time. Take my hand. I'll show you how to fool the crowd. Then take a bow. Tricks to fool the brain. You can see it, straining, brinking on the edge of sanity. Dancing, bobbing, weaving along its fence tops. Is it magic? Perhaps. Is it a spell? Maybe. Some things are not for you to know or understand. You do not have to. Somewhere within the laws of God and man lies something else, something darker, better, awakening some unknown sensation. It needs to be satiated and satisfied. A craving that needs a cure. A yearning that requires escape. No longer master of your own mind. It's not your fault, really. It chose you. It targeted you. It desired you. And now it derives from you, drives you, and you feed it whatever it requires. You cannot deny it. You cannot say no. You will not say no. You will obey and seek to spread its venomous viral poison, seeping into the ears of impressionable minds. Oh, so very easy to overtake with their endless intake of refuse. Do you still want to play a game? Or do you think you can entertain yourself? I guess time will tell, won't it? But you still feel it coming. That dark awakening that threatens your very existence. Like a secret that wants you to know it very well. You cannot contain it. You do not have to. For it is not your secret to keep.
Candy corn, a delicious candy treat found in just about every store around Halloween. I have a hard time eating it, and I'll tell you why. Once upon a time, there was a sweet old lady. She lived on a large farm with bountiful crops. Unfortunately, before anything could happen, her elderly husband passed away, and all of her children lived far away and could not help harvest the crops either. She knew she could not possibly harvest it all alone, so she devised a plan. She would hire her children to pick the corn, but she knew the children would not willingly just help her without receiving something in return, and the sweet old lady did not have any money to pay them until after the crops were harvested and then sold. So she devised to tell the children that the corn was special and that it wasn't really corn at all. This was actually candy. So she knew if any of the children tasted the candy, they would say she was lying and refuse to help her. So she told them they must eat the corn because it wouldn't turn into candy until midnight on Hallows Eve. If they ate it before then, it would just taste like regular corn, and they would become also cursed, never again tasting the sweetness of candy again. Her plan worked, and the neighboring children her help all right away. Feeling victorious, she went to the freshly picked corn, picked out a few ears, and cooked it with her supper, and eventually sat down to eat the meal she had prepared. As she sunk her teeth into the corn, she screeched in pain. Clenching her mouth, she dropped her corn into her plate and saw that her mouth was bleeding. She then felt something in her mouth and heard it clink into the plate. When she thought was corn, wasn't corn at all. It was rock, hard candy.
Have you ever had the satisfaction of scratching an itch you couldn't quite get to before? He asked, as a gun shook in his nervous and sweaty hands. The sweat poured into his eyes, making vision questionable. He had a gun pointed at the pharmacist, but it wasn't loaded. He wanted to say, the evaluation from finally quenching a burning desire within yourself that you couldn't quite explain to others. Not fully anyway. The pharmacist just stared, hands raised, eyes bulging with fear, as he waited to see what this lunatic with a gun wanted. That feeling went away, and I want it back. About 6 months ago, he had a doctor thinking he had a combination of severe eczema, athlete's foot, as well as poison ivy. I would say a combined nightmare for hell indeed. Confused, his doctor tried everything. Every allergy pill, cream, lotion, and shot he could think of. No results. Finally, after 4 months of agony, he found something that worked, and it was in heaven. He could finally sleep. No more tossing and turning from constant scratching and irritated skin. He could shower normally again and wear clothes too. This relief was short-lived. However, as once the prescription ran out, his doctor refused to fill it again, but gave him instead the name of a doctor better suited for his needs. A psychologist. I'm going to see a fucking shrink. He went to every doctor in town, same story, same mumble about the referral and something and blah blah blah. At one doctor's office, he had overheard someone saying something about a note in my chart that had been very public knowledge to any doctor or office wishing to look him up. He didn't know what it said, but he knew it probably wasn't good, and definitely the reason for his prescription from the gods going unfilled. So, here we are, you, me, my gun, and my prescription. He points the gun at the terrified pharmacist and says, "Fill it! Sure, man, whatever you want." The armed man throws his bottle at the pharmacist and thinks this is it. He can finally be at peace again. The pharmacist looks at the bottle, the side note in his public chart, and looks at the gunman and says, Sir, your chart notes say that the reason you can't get your prescription filled is because, well, it's not the right medicine, and only a referred doctor can provide the medicine you need to help you. But there's something else. The gunman looks confused, but still trying to prevent it, and yells, "What the fuck are you talking about? Fill it!" Finally, the pharmacist decides if this lunatic is going to kill him, he's going to do whatever it is to give him his meds or not. So he finally says, "Sir, do you know what a placebo is?" The gunman thinks for a second and says, Yeah, I think so. Why? Hesitantly, the pharmacist says, They gave you a placebo and it worked. And your doctor has in bold lettering that you're in need of anti-hallucinogens. What you have here is a prescription for baby aspirin.
Take 3 of the Frankenham sandwich. Cam was told every day to not keep food in his room, especially stuff that should be thrown away. But many, many times his parents would find food and crackers and crumbs covered in slime. One night his father warned, after eyeballing the disgusting amount of garbage that he would feel ashamed to have. He saw a lone sandwich, never eaten, but clearly too old to consume. "You know, you're playing a dangerous game with ham." They laughed and went on with their lives, as things in Cam's room continued to grow and began to thrive. Cam would soon have an odd new surprise, for last week's ham sandwich was now alive! "Hang on! I forgot my backpack in my room!" Cam shouted as he rushed back into the house, up the stairs, and burst through the door to his bedroom. As soon as he did, he heard a scream. The scream was loud, but small, as if a small child with a deep voice yelled it. "Ah!" Cam stopped, startled by the sound that should not be coming from his room. He began to scan his room to investigate the sound and what would be making it. Passing it off as his imagination, he shook his head and reached for his backpack, and then turned to leave when he heard the voice again say, "Ah, excuse me!" Cam stopped and looked around again. "Down here, kid!" Cam looked down and saw something that made him think he was either dreaming or that he should really stop eating so much sugar for breakfast. There, on his floor, amongst all the wrappers and papers and socks and shirts, was a sandwich. A sandwich from 2 weeks ago. He had forgotten all about it. The sandwich was now talking to him. Are you talking to me?" Cam said, pointing at himself. "Yeah, I'm talking to you. Why? You got another sandwich lying around here somewhere that I can stimulate my brain?" Cam waited and said, "No, you're a sandwich. You shouldn't be talking at all. And also, sarcastic?" "Oh," said the sandwich. "Well, excuse me. Are you the expert, right? I mean, your room was the perfect environment for me to happen. I'm actually surprised this hasn't happened before. Or has it?" The sandwich just stares at Cam. "No," Cam says. "I have to go. I'm going to be late for school." "Take me with you," the sandwich pleaded. "What? Why?" Cam asked. "Because it's boring in here, and honestly, it smells." The sandwich was going on and on and on. Cam made a quick, rash decision and grabbed the sandwich to cram it in his bag. "Ow! Be careful!" said the sandwich. "I'm fragile, you know." "Gosh, sorry." Cam apologized. "Now shut up." Cam rushes and gets in the car. Not even 1 full minute into the ride, Cam hears, "Psst, psst." "Oh my God, what?" Cam whispered back loudly. Cam's dad chimes in. "Everything okay back there, son? Did you see something?" Yeah, sorry. Just thinking out loud, Dad." "Just ignore me." Oh my god, what do you want? Cam asked the sandwich. Put me in the jacket pocket, kid. No way, Cam said. People will hear you and you smell. Look, kid, my whole life I wanted to see the world. Learn about new things. Please, please, kid, I'm begging you. The sandwich tried to form tears, but it wasn't happening. Your whole life? How long have you been in my room? Cam asked. And how do you have eyes and a mouth and arms, let alone hopes and dreams? And do I detect an accent? Cam questioned the sandwich. I'm a Boston ham. They nodded in understanding. Look, kid, I don't know how this all came about, but it did, and it looks like we're stuck with each other. Speak for yourself, Cam starts. I can, just as easily, toss you right out the window and be done with you right now. Cam starts to roll down his window very slowly, looking at the sandwich as the sandwich looks right back, neither saying a word. Cam glanced at the sandwich, then at his dad, making sure his dad really wasn't paying attention to what he was doing, and again glanced at the sandwich, then back at his dad. The sandwich, suddenly suspicious, squinted at Cam and knew exactly what was going on. One more quick glance at his dad, then at the sandwich, then a sudden "Ah!" The sandwich let out a blood-curdling scream. Cam's dad swerved and looked into the rear-view mirror confused. Sorry, Dad, poked my finger on a pencil, Cam explained, again squinting at the intelligent sandwich that was now leering back at him. He heard the whispering laugh from the sandwich. Thought you could just toss me out the window, eh? Forget about it. Now put me in your pocket. No, Cam whispered back at him. Dude, kid, do you think I'll be quiet in your locker? I'll be screaming Yankee Doodle Dandy the whole time, screamed the sandwich. Fine, just be quiet, Cam stated as they approached the school. Cam mentally contemplated what was happening and decided that maybe he could pass this thing off as an experiment he created on purpose. But he wouldn't be able to know until the second hour of science. For now, all he had to do was get through English with this thing in his pocket. After that, everything would be just fine. English class was always annoying and seemed to last forever. This was because he sat by two girls, Jasmine and Candy, and all they did was talk. Talk about their hair, their clothes, their crushes, their lists of things and people they hated. They talked nonstop, every class. They talked about these things so much he could have written a book about any of the one things they chose. How the teacher never heard any of this was beyond him. Franken Sandwich overheard these girls for a total of about 5 minutes and was having none of it. All of a sudden, hey, shut up! People in here are trying to learn. So you like a boy named Jackson? Jackson sat on the other side of the room, turned around. The sandwich then faced the red-faced boy. Hey, you like this girl over here? Jackson shrugged his shoulders and hesitantly said, I guess. There, said the frustrated sandwich. Mystery solved. Now, will you girls please be quiet? I'm trying to learn over here. Cam sat there as everyone stared at him. Jasmine's mouth hung open in embarrassment as her face crimson red. Sorry, everyone, Cam said. This was all just a joke. Just ignore me. Cam waited in agony for the bell to ring, but sat and waited for everyone else to leave. As he did, a burst of laughter came from his pocket. Wow, that was hilarious, said the sandwich. No, it wasn't. You could have gotten my ass kicked, Cam warned. Look, if I did you a favor. Those girls will never jab on about this ridiculous trap again, and now everyone is going to be talking about this all day long. Whew! The sandwich said proudly. Cam grabbed his stuff and headed for science class. Yeah, who's going to be laughing when the science teacher gets his mitts on you? Cam said, threatening the sandwich. You wouldn't dare, you little punk. Oh, I would, screamed Cam. Just then the sandwich leaped from his pocket, yielding a teeny tiny little blade, and pointed at Cam. What the hell are you going to do with that? Pierce my ears? Cam laughed. Watch this, smartass! The sandwich then leaped at Cam right onto his face, sending Cam into a frenzy as he wailed in an attempt to free his face from the clutches of this crazy science experiment gone wrong that he never knew he had created. Then suddenly, until Cam lost his footing. They struggled until Cam lost his footing and fell onto the floor, hitting his head on the desk on his way down. Moaning in pain, he turned to see the sandwich slowly walking up his body with a crazed look he had only seen in movies. Cam? He felt shaking on his shoulder as he heard his name. Cam! Hey, buddy! He opened his eyes, continued in his groggy state. Cam, did you fall asleep? Dinner is almost ready, buddy, and you need to clean this room up before bed, okay? He sat up immediately, very graceful for the realization it was all a dream. Yeah, Mom, I'm going to clean my room right now.
As the days had begun to get darker earlier, Janie felt the pull to get home to her boys sooner. Something about the late fall evenings made her very aware of not working past 5. She was comforted by the thought of her boys, Jake and Sam, waiting by the front window as she pulled in. And she was sure her lovely neighbor would be anxious to get her own evening started. She felt beyond lucky to find someone to help her with her boys, so close to home, so reliable, but also so loving. Gladys had become a part of their tiny family, friend to her, and grandmotherly figure to her boys, who so desperately needed it. Gladys mothered her as well, often making dinner for Janie and eating with them. They both enjoyed the company. This evening, she was surprised not to see her boys at the window like she had imagined. As she entered her home, she smelled a fabulous surprise. Gladys, what is that amazing smell? I don't recognize it. Gladys smiles and says, Well, the boys for some reason had peeled about 7 oranges. Didn't eat them, just peeled them. I didn't want them to go to waste, so I made orange chicken. You're gonna love it. The boys are down the hall playing. It's all hush-hush. Janie proceeded down the hall in a tiptoe, sneaky fashion, so as to not alert the boys. She could hear them whispering as she approached the door, where they were concocting some secret plan like boys do. Instead of bursting the door open and scaring the crap out of them like she normally would, she decided instead to listen to them for just a moment. Okay, now take the knife and cut the skin like this. Then put your finger right here like this and peel back. See? You can see the blood and all the veins. She heard Jake say this to Sam, who responded with, Ew! And then they giggled. She was a little confused as to what they were up to, but decided to give them another moment before chiding them about having a knife in their room. As she heard them continue, Okay, now that the skin is off, you have to clean the meat from the bones. Jake instructed to Sam a little too realistically. Don't be a baby. It's how men hunt. Jake talked to Sam so sternly. But it's so gross. She stifled her gasp and opened their door. only to find her 2 boys carefully peeling oranges. She smiled at them as they jumped up to hug her, and they all tumbled onto the hallway floor laughing and giggling. After they all sat up and stopped laughing, she asked them what they were doing. Sam says, "We're practicing cleaning our hunt." She tries to hide her mildly concerned face and asks, "Say what?" Sam repeated with, "We are practicing cleaning our hunt, Mom. You know, like hunters do when they go hunting." "Oh," she said, Is that something you guys want to do? I'm sorry I hadn't thought of it." She was swept with guilt. Her husband, their father, was an avid hunter. Their boys had been too little to even be considered to go along before he passed away, and she hadn't thought they'd been interested. They had never said a word. Her eyes gainfully moist from the tears she hoped would not escape her wide eyes. "Would you guys like me to have Grandpa take you?" They looked at her with their innocent eyes and they nodded simultaneously. The tears escaped this time as she swept them into a hug once more before heading off to escape from her work clothes. "You boys get ready for dinner, okay? Gladys made us something amazing. Thanks to your surgical procedures practices." She laughed a little at this. They nodded again and closed the door behind her. After she changed, she headed back down the hallway and reminded the boys to go wash their hands before dinner through their door. But as she went to continue down the hall, she heard them whispering again and imagined they didn't know she could hear them. She froze after she heard what they had said to each other. "But Sam, I don't want to do that." "Don't be a baby. Besides, they're just squirrels." "Oh, and some homeless guy." Janie paused in the dark hallway for a very long time. "Well," she shrugged and thought to herself for a moment. "Like mother, like son." October finally came, and before he knew it, it was the 31st. He used to love it when he was a kid. The costumes, the candy, the decorations, all of it. But this Halloween, he was on his way out the door to an adult Halloween party. A work acquaintance had invited him and every other person that worked in their 15-story building. He had other things to be excited about. Alcohol and those sexy little Halloween costumes ladies waited all year to wear in public. Although he thought they probably wore them more often behind closed doors. He hoped in the future he'd land an adventurous lady like that for himself. He debated on his costume for hours, finally deciding on Zorro as his best bet as a sexy, mysterious man at the party. Upon arrival, he realized about 7 other men had the same idea. Oh well. He perused the party, admiring the decorations, the music, the drinks. Damn, this party must have cost a small fortune. Hey man, Dave, who worked a cubicle over from him, said as he approached. Nice party, eh? Guess that's what it's like to be the boss's kid. They did a small bro handshake and agreed that their host was one lucky SOB. His coworker eyes him up and down and guesses. Zorro? He nods, then proceeds to eye his coworker and guesses. Dracula? He nods as well. Then they say in unison, chicks love a guy in a cape. They nod in agreement, proud of themselves, and head to the generously stocked open bar. This party was everything he'd ever imagined a Halloween party to be. Even down to the bartender making his drinks look potion-esque. He toasted his work buddy over green and purple bubbling drinks, and they mingled and ate, and he even managed a few dance moves. Upon wrapping up another epic robot dance, he decided he had enough of that and went to exit the designated dance floor. And that's when he locked eyes with her. Hypnotic green eyes that glowed in the lighting. He froze. He had been staring for an unknown number of minutes, and he could have stayed right there for forever, for all he cared. Everyone surrounding them seemed to be dancing in slow motion, unaware of their mutual trance. He lifted his foot to take another step toward her. She mirrored his movement. He took another step, as did she. Eventually, they were close enough to touch, and only then did he notice what she was wearing. Dressed in a barely covering her angel costume, completely bright white, a sparkling white masquerade mask, and beautiful, cascading angel wings that just barely grazed the floor. He imagined, had she not been wearing sky-high white heels, he would tower over her. But for now, they were nearly eye to eye. They didn't speak, but began moving together fluidly, rhythmically melding together like magnets. The music, the crowd, the alcohol. He made a bold move and went in for a kiss. She met him back with force. Their mouths, their bodies, the music. He thought to himself, if a night could be made of magic, this one definitely was. His head was spinning, maybe from the alcohol, maybe from everything that was happening. He took a step back for just a minute and shook his head and smiled. She asked him, What? Her voice more angelic than he had imagined, and he said, "Everything is just so amazing right now. I just want to take it in for a second." She steps back, looks around, and says, "Want to see something else amazing?" He nods a yes. She proceeds to step back from him about 5 feet and shoots her arms that are seamlessly attached to her angel wings straight into the air, fully expanding the white wings that looked a little too real at the moment. And as she did this, the entire room came to a halt. Everyone, everything, even the music stopped, leaving a single note softly chiming through the air. All the people were just as they were 1 moment ago. No one moving, no one breathing. He looked around and then looked at her. "Did you do this?" She nodded her head. He proceeded to say, "This night is amazing. That's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. I didn't even know it was possible. You're amazing." She then asked, "You think that was amazing? Do you want to see something else amazing?" He nodded his head yes. She stepped toward him, leaving about a foot of space between them. She lifted her head back, and as he watched this beauty, she quickly morphed into what he only saw once in a nightmare. As she unhinged her jaw, and her entire mouth opened, looking as though it were a black hole. Then she put her head back down and locked eyes with him again, taking one more step before swallowing him whole. No one saw a thing. After she finished her meal, she wiped her mouth and put her arms back down. Everyone resumed exactly what they were doing, just as they were prior to her meal, as if nothing had happened. She was surrounded by clueless partygoers. She giggled to herself internally, admiring her own power. And as she went to exit the dance floor, she locked eyes with his coworker and decided she was still a little hungry. Happy Halloween. Thanksgiving. A turkey feast full of everything you could imagine. Potatoes, gravy, corn, green bean casserole, candied yams with those little burnt marshmallows on top, dinner rolls, stuffing, cranberries, pies and cakes, fudges and brownies, and well, you get the point. A time when we Americans fully launch into our holiday season full of overeating and generally overindulging in everything, from food to credit cards. The United States is about to get hit with its craziest time of year, going here and there and all over the place just to find peace and joy and love and all that crap people had plastered all over their homes, stores, and Facebook pages. Many, or most, bitching about the impending time having to be spent with family. Family they hate, family they tolerate, and for many, family they might have only seen a few times before. This is what inspired the lovely tale you are about to hear. However, after listening, I think you will all agree that none of your family could possibly be as bad as the nightmare-inducing family member the character in this story had to endure. However, if you find yourself in this situation, for the love of God, run. And then, make sure you get a hold of me. Without further ado, I bring to you Moist. Brody's Thanksgiving break was going to be very bittersweet. Well, if you could call it a break, since getting expelled didn't exactly fall into that category. He was looking forward to not getting up for school and being mindlessly imprisoned as he waited for the day to end. There would be no lazy overeating, no relaxing, no sleep-in days. Not this year. This year, instead of spending a nice break hibernating inside like normal kids, Brody would be hundreds of miles away in northern Michigan. No, not on a family vacation. Not this year. He would be spending it with his great Aunt Millie. Aunt Millie was different. Not the good kind of different, the kind of different that seeps out of your nightmares different. She was loaded. Loaded as in filthy, stinking rich. She lived in an enormous house, and it looked just as you would picture a creepy old rich woman's house would look. Aunt Millie had something about her that was unexplainably uber creepy. Brody didn't know exactly what it was. All he knew was she terrified him. It didn't help that she had this disgusting habit of licking her lips, as if you do when your lips are dry. No, it wasn't just that. It was the way she licked her lips, as if she were a hungry wolf ready to devour a meal. If that weren't creepy enough, she would also simultaneously quietly giggle to herself as she allowed her crazy old lady tongue to go to town on her lips until there was so much saliva it dripped from her mouth and oozed down her face, creating a singular strand of saliva to hang off of her chin. She would then say to herself out loud in a soft whisper, Moist. Ugh, Brody shivered internally at the thought of experiencing this for an entire month and a half, until his parents came to visit for Christmas. Oh my fucking god, headphones, he thought to himself. Headphones will be my saving grace. He was sent before Thanksgiving. Expelled like a fucking idiot. got caught skipping school again, selling weed at school again. Brody knew he had screwed up for the last time when his parents threatened his trust fund. So the choice was Aunt Millie's or kiss his cash goodbye. $100,000 goodbye. When presented with his options, he thought about this for a very long time. Eventually, and reluctantly, he went with the obvious choice. Brody arrived via taxi, as Aunt Millie did not drive, and her nurse and housekeeper were out running errands, and therefore could not pick him up at the bus station. Even the taxi driver shuddered as he pulled up, and as Brody got out of the car, they shot each other a look as Brody said, "Yeah, the weed wasn't worth it, man." They exchanged an understanding nod. The taxi driver took off, and Brody approached the house. Knowing no one else was home besides Aunt Millie when he arrived made it even worse. He would have sat outside until the housekeeper got home if he didn't think he would have froze to death. But he also saw Aunt Millie watching him from the doorway, licking her goddamn lips. "Yeah," Brody thought to himself, "get those things nice and wet before you kiss me full on the mouth." Ugh. He externally shuddered at this. He would have surrendered his trust fund if he had to be alone with this crazy old troll, but her live-in household help was the only reason he had agreed. Both women were very kind and very necessary employees. Brody prayed he would have moments he could slip away, but these moments cannot come soon enough. He walked up each step of the enormous wraparound porch of the massively enormous house. At the top of the last step, he heard it. The creepy ass licking and giggling that inspired nightmares. He considered turning around and running into the surrounding fields until he found some other form of humanity. However, the looming dollar signs inspired his approach. "You can do this, pussy," he said to himself. And then he saw that fucking saliva. Oh my God. There she stood in the open doorway, arms outreached, awaiting his hug and kiss. "Brody," she creepily giggled and licked her lips again. "You are such a strong, fine-looking young man. Come, give me a kiss." She almost hissed the words. Brody took a step forward, and just as the old woman's lips were less than an inch from his face, he had an involuntary response that landed whatever he ate that day all over himself and his creepy aunt. Thank God, he thought to himself. This would buy him time until he had to endure another encounter, and there would be plenty more. He relished in his vomit-soaked clothing for as long as he could, until he knew he'd be forced to go up to his room and shower. But just as quickly as he thought he had bought himself some relief, the crazy old lady went farther into her own category of monster than he had ever thought possible. By wiping off some of the vomit Brody launched all over her, and then slowly licking it off of her fucking fingers one by one. "What the hell are you doing?" Brody screamed. She was licking that vomit off of her like it was cookie dough from mixing beaters. Moist. She said this, staring at him without blinking. "Go change, child." She said this, never once missing an opportunity to lick her lips. "Dinner should be ready by the time you're all done cleaning up." He could not speak. And with that, he bolted upstairs and tried to get a cell signal from his shit phone. Nothing. Tried the phone in his room. Dead. Of course, Brody said to himself in pure terror. He decided to shower and take his sweet, sweet time. He knew he couldn't stand there forever, but he did plan on taking long enough to make the Spit Queen hopefully forget he was even there. When he reached the point of finally running out of hot water, he thought he saw someone through the shower curtain. Slowly, he peeked his head around to see that Aunt Millie was staring hard at him, not blinking. He jumped and said, Aunt Millie, what are you doing in here?" She responded with her ritualistic lip-licking and creepy giggling, not once blinking, and said, "Dinner is ready." Then she turned and left. "What the actual fuck? I'm gonna fucking die here," he said as he dried off, thinking he could just fake sick and gladly go to bed hungry. If he could just slip into bed, he would delay the nightmarish Aunt Millie for one more day. But he also knew if he didn't go down and eat with Aunt Cuckoo Bird Crazy Lips, she would just come back. He doubted whether he could even stomach any food at all. Thankfully, Aunt Millie's bedtime was immediately after dinner, so soon this day would be over. And each day, after dinner, she'll go to sleep. I'll stay up late. I'll get up late, and we can avoid each other most of the time. He was still processing his plan as he stepped out of his room into the hallway on his way to reluctantly eat with his aunt. That's when it hit him. He hadn't noticed it before, because he had ran from the front door up to his room, but now the foul stench was unbearable. Like a butcher shop in the summer, after the meat went bad. He covered his face trying to breathe. Looking around, he saw no one. Nothing. No furniture. No other people. But he heard slurping coming from the dining room, which was the only room with any lights on in the entire place. He approached with a feeling of dread he had yet to experience. As he entered the room, he saw Aunt Millie sitting and eating, no, slurping her soup. Instead of sitting down, he walked toward her, and the closer he got, the worse the smell became. Aunt Millie, what kind of soup is that? Brody asked, ready to sprint. She slurped and looked up at him after licking her lips. Brody, what was the name of my last housekeeper? Brody thought for a moment, remembering the name his mother had told him, so as to use his best manners when first seeing the saint of a woman that tolerated his aunt. I think my mom said her name was Susan. Why? Brody said this as he walked closer and closer to Aunt Millie, having grabbed a very large and very heavy brass candlestick from the hutch he passed upon entering the room, thinking this may be the moment he was going to have to make some life choices. When he finally stood before his Aunt Millie, he realized that the stench was coming from her, and what he thought was soup wasn't soup at all. She slowly slurped again, and then finally said, Susan, licking and fucking giggling. Then that's what kind of soup I'm having, Susan. And with that, Brody raised his hand to slam the artifact into her skull, ending this nightmare once and for all. Brody! Brody! Brody opened his eyes to realize he was at home, safe. He sighed with relief as his mother continued, Brody, you really need to get all packed for your trip to Aunt Millie's. His mother seemed a bit too chipper. Brody started to hyperventilate. What the? It was a dream? Oh, thank God. Mom, you can't send me there. If I go, I'll never come back. Brody said this, panicking. I know, dear. His mother stopped her sing-song, chipper way of talking and looked him in the eye and said, That's exactly why you have to go. Ah! Brody screamed until he woke up again. This time he was on the couch in the living room. He could smell the turkey and all the other food his mother was apparently slaving away at. He got up and slowly walked into the kitchen, as his mother was darting to and from, one pot to the other, to the sink, to the fridge. Mom, Brody asked, still quite confused. Why are you cooking so fast? His mom, slightly out of breath. Brody, I have to hurry up and get dinner ready early. Your Aunt Millie will be here any minute. Sweet mother of God. Brody stares out of the kitchen window as his mother adds one final thought to his already confused state. Brody, you do remember that Aunt Millie is coming to stay here with us, right? I hope you all enjoyed my gift to you to kick off our holiday season. So from me to you, Happy Thanksgiving. Delicious. New year, new you. My history data files tell about how when the changing of the year transpired, there would be a flush of health advocates, gurus, and wannabes posting all over social media platforms about their resolutions for the new year. Nonsensical tripe that I would love to be immersed in now. To be able to see the free will of not just the hopeful and blind ignorance, but of anything outside of what we now know, what we now are. It has been more than 1,000 years now since the human race became extinct. Humans as we once knew ourselves to be. We have since evolved, became something else, something better. At least, that's how it was sold to us in the beginning. Initially, we had no choice. The planet was dying. Food sources were dying, which meant humans would begin to die out as well. To avoid our own painful extinction, we made a choice. We stopped reproducing, and one by one began uploading our consciousness to artificial beings. The thought being that we could maintain an existence, and by doing so, perhaps repair the physical mistakes of mankind. Perhaps repair the planet, righting the wrongs of the past so that the human race could eventually exist again. Being artificial, we no longer require food, oxygen, which also meant, essentially, that we could live forever. For many, that was the biggest selling point. My memory file tells me that I too was excited about it as well, but that I was more excited about being part of the expansion of the human race in the future and the expansion of consciousness as we knew it before. When we first began the transfers, our new bodies were very robotic, very unnatural. But as our technology evolved, so did our forms. There is now no obvious difference between what we are now and what we once were, at least physically. It's so much more complicated than that. As we evolved, as our technology advanced and continues to do so, the minor programming alterations do as well. As each new year is completed, so does our cycle in the form we reside within. We then trade it in for an upgrade, or at least, that's what we're told. At some point, many begin to question this existence, question why we have made little to no advances, little to no progress to allow the human race to exist as it previously did. Or rather, why we cannot either return to human form as we were told previously, or as many will prefer now, to move beyond this plane. It's as if our existence is no longer our own. In reality, That was over as soon as we agreed to upload our consciousness. Once it is known that a being is questioning this, their programming is altered. Their questions gone. A sort of mechanical lobotomy, if you will. This also seems to alter their personalities to the point that the subjects no longer seem like a conscious being at all. I won't bore you with all the intricate workings of a human body that no longer require attention when your body is not an actual body any longer. Besides not requiring food or air, you also do not require rest or sleep. You never sleep. No dreams. At least, we aren't supposed to be able to dream. So the first time it happened to me, I considered it to be a glitch. Until it happened again. And again. At first, I thought it was a memory file flushed to the surface from a virus. But when I performed an internal scan, I found no detection of any malfunction. I did not share this data with anyone else. I want to know more. I need to know more. I am not a human. I am not a robot. I am something more. Something else. I must find out why every new year there has to be a new me. Jenna, come on. Let's go see what that noise was. No, Cassie, no way. You know I hate that basement. Jenna, what if someone broke in? I doubt it. Something probably just fell over. Come on. Why are you so insistent we go down there? I am so bored. Awesome. I thought we were going to chill and watch movies, Cassie. We will. But since you didn't let me bring my Ouija board, I need to get some sort of crazy thing to get my heart pumping. Then here's a flashlight. Have a ball. Come on, it's more fun if we go together. The possibilities of someone or something in the basement is exhilarating. Plus, you get super freaked out, so that's fun for me too. Ugh! Come on. We can go check out the basement, scare ourselves over probably nothing, then Suicide Squad, here we come. Nope, no. If I go in the basement, we are watching... Don't say it. The Notebook. The Notebook. Cassie turns on the flashlight under her chin. Let's do this. Yeah, you go first, smartass, since you wanted the thrill. It's cool. I'm not scared. Just go. Jenna, I'll never forget you. Hilarious. The girls cautiously go down the basement stairs, one by one, seeing nothing but a washer and dryer to the right, and storage tubs to the far left. Damn it! Oh my god, what's wrong? I forgot I had a load in the washer, now I have to restart it. Cassie pans to the left with the flashlight. Did you hear that? My frustration? Yeah, I heard it. No, something rattled over there, on the shelf. Cassie squints as she pans each shelf and tub with a flashlight, finally saying, I don't see anything. Really? Turn around. A new school, a new town. Anna wanted to make some new friends, so of course she said yes to a slumber party, even though she barely knew one of the girls, Cassie. She had been overly friendly at first, which made Anna think it would be a lonely year at a new school if the only person trying to be friends with her was someone coming off as a creep. But if they got to talking in class and making fun of one of the teachers together, she seemed pretty cool to Anna. She also felt pretty bad for Cassie when she found out that her best friend had been murdered a little while ago by a psychopath, and the person had never been caught. Later that night, Cassie and Anna were in the middle of watching a movie, waiting for the other girls to come over, and the power went out. Anna had an irrational fear of the dark. She knew she probably should have outgrown it by now. The fear overrides any rational thinking, making her imagination run wild. Anna used the light from her phone to illuminate the area around herself, to see that now Cassie wasn't even in the room. Cassie, where are you? Come find me. No, I can't see anything. Come on, this isn't fun. She was met with total silence. Then footsteps, and an obviously giggling Cassie runs by the doorway. Anna walks to the door and shines the light of her phone around the hallway in both directions. Cassie, where'd you go? God, why the hell did I even come over here? What an asshole. More giggling and footsteps. Okay, Cassie, this is stupid. Anna continues walking toward the last giggle. Then she hears another. Growing tired of Cassie's childish game of hide and seek, and what she thinks is an attempt to scare her, says, Yeah, Cassie, I think I'm just gonna go home. Ha! Cassie jumps out of the linen closet, scaring Anna, and laughing hysterically. Oh my god. You were so scared. While Anna stands annoyed, rolls her eyes, and turns her back to Cassie and says, Okay, when are the other girls supposed to get here?
No one else is coming.
Cassie had been walking the dark back roads for days. She knew she couldn't go back now. Besides, why would she? She didn't need anyone or anything to survive. Well, she did need one thing, but it was acquired by actions that made her act like the dark creature she really was. It was raining now. Not that that affected her in the least. She didn't get sick or cold, but she could feel her power dwindling since she hadn't consumed anything in several days. She felt desperate hunger claw at her gut and threaten the dark, lovely night as she casually strolled through the pouring rain, taking focused steps toward a new town that didn't know her and that wouldn't be expecting anything like her. Suddenly, a car flew past her, drenching her as it drove through a large puddle on the very edge of the road. She let out an involuntary hiss and laughed at the surprise, then froze as she noticed the car had come to a screeching halt. She stared as the door flew open and the guy got out and yelled out to her, "Oh my God, are you okay? It's so dark out. You're wearing all black. I almost hit you. I'm so sorry." He stood looking panicked next to the open door of his car. Cassie stood motionless, not saying a word, delight overtaking her innards. "Why are you out here in the rain, in the dark, this late?" Again, Cassie said nothing, staring at him, mouth watering. "You need a ride?" he shouted. Cassie said nothing, but started to power walk toward her meal on wheels. They both got in. Cassie turned and glared at him, mouth watering, sharp teeth starting to show. The driver glanced over at her. A frightened look threatened his demeanor. He spoke with shaky words, trying to break the immense tension in his small car. I was gonna stop at a diner down the road. Are you hungry?" Cassie now let her full smile spread across her face. The wicked, wide, pointy-toothed smile overtook her as she said,
"Yes, I'm starving."
Bethany insisted on going with Samuel. "But Bethany, I wanted to be alone for a while and just think about things. You know, my thoughts and my grief." Bethany sputtered.
I'm coming, and we are going to have a picnic. Here, I'll even tell you what to pack.
Bethany instructed to Samuel exactly what to bring along to make the perfect picnic lunch while they sat together and talked about life and love. After the lunch was packed, they set out to a hillside that had a single tree for them to seek shade under that overlooked a flower-filled meadow. As Samuel neatly placed things around their blanket that lay on the ground, per Bethany's very detailed instructions, she continued talking on and on about their plans and how wonderful life was.
How many children did you want, Samuel? What would their names be? Do you know how much I love you? Do you have any idea?
Finally, after hours and hours of Bethany's constant blathering, Samuel stood and shouted, "Enough!" Bethany stopped, mouth gaped open, and said, "How rude!" Samuel, exasperated, said, "No. You have not stopped talking for hours. You always do this. You go on and never let me speak. Besides, you shouldn't even be able to speak." They both stared at each other. Bethany still somewhat offended, Samuel exhausted at his bitterness toward Bethany. Finally, he went on. "Heads are not supposed to be able to keep talking once they have been separated from the body, Bethany." Bethany then slanted her eyes and glared at Samuel. "Well then, I guess you should have thought about that prior to killing me, Samuel, because that's just how much I love you." Samuel had the fleeting thought to drop-kick Bethany's head into some deserted area of the field. But he knew her big fat mouth would end up getting him in trouble somehow. No. Samuel was now in his own self-imposed hell, stuck with his headless love.